It's 0-200 hours at the Naval Nuclear Prototype Training Unit in South Carolina, and Seaman recruit Thompson is 30 seconds into a simulated nuclear reactor emergency that will determine whether he has what it takes to serve aboard a $4 billion nuclear submarine. Around him, alarms scream as simulated steam fills the training compartment, while instructors, considered among the Navy's top experts on classified nuclear technology, watch his every move with the intensity of surgeons observing life-saving procedures. Thompson has exactly 5 minutes to identify the casualty, implement emergency procedures, and restore reactor control before the simulation declares his submarine and 130 imaginary crew members lost forever. This isn't theoretical training. It's preparation for scenarios where a single wrong decision 400 feet underwater could trigger a nuclear incident, flood the submarine with lethal radiation, or send the world's most advanced underwater weapons platform plummeting to the ocean floor with all hands aboard. The sailors training at facilities like this represent the Navy's best and brightest, selected through rigorous academic and psychological screening to operate nuclear reactors that power submarines worth more than the GDP of most small nations. They're preparing to join a fleet with over 6,200 reactor years of operation and 0 radiological accidents since the USS Nautilus first dove beneath the waves, a safety record that exists only because of the extreme training these young men and women must survive. The nuclear submarines they'll eventually operate represent the most dynamic nuclear power plants in the world, capable of diving to crushing depths, remaining submerged for months, and conducting missions in hostile waters where detection means death or international incident. Every system aboard these vessels, from reactor control to torpedo loading, from life support to emergency escape procedures, requires training so intensive that many recruits break under the mental and physical pressure before ever setting foot aboard an actual submarine. Today, we're revealing the extraordinary training process that transforms ordinary sailors into nuclear-qualified submarine operators, the life or death scenarios they must master, and why the Navy considers submarine service the ultimate test of human capability beneath the world's most dangerous seas. The transformation from civilian to nuclear submarine operator begins at Nuclear Power School, where the Navy's most promising recruits face an academic gauntlet so intense that graduate-level engineers often fail within the first month. Located in Charleston, South Carolina, this facility has earned a reputation as the most demanding educational program in the military, a place where 18-year-olds straight out of high school must master nuclear physics, reactor theory, and thermodynamics at a pace that would challenge MIT students. The academic schedule operates like a pressure cooker designed to break weak minds before they can endanger billion-dollar submarines and their crews. Students attend classes 8 hours daily, followed by mandatory study periods that stretch late into the night, while instructors, hand-picked as the Navy's top experts on classified nuclear technology, deliver information at a relentless pace that allows no time for confusion or second-guessing. These instructors aren't just teachers. They're former submarine reactor operators who've spent years managing the most dynamic nuclear power plants in the world under conditions where mistakes kill people. The curriculum covers nuclear physics concepts that most civilians never encounter: neutron flux, reactor kinetics, steam plant operations, and electrical systems that operate under pressures and temperatures that would instantly kill anyone exposed to them. Students must memorize thousands of technical specifications, master complex mathematical calculations without calculators, and demonstrate understanding through examinations where passing grades require near perfection. The academic pressure becomes so intense that some students develop stress-related medical conditions, while others suffer psychological breakdowns that end their naval careers before they begin. What makes Nuclear Power School uniquely challenging isn't just the academic rigor. It's the constant reminder that every equation, every procedure, and every safety protocol could mean the difference between life and death aboard an operational submarine. Unlike civilian nuclear power plants with large engineering staffs and extensive backup systems, submarine reactors must be operated by small crews working in confined spaces where help isn't coming if something goes wrong. The margin for error simply doesn't exist. The washout rate reflects the program's unforgiving standards. Roughly 30% of students fail to complete nuclear power school, despite being selected from the top 10% of Navy recruits based on intelligence and aptitude scores. Those who survive the academic crucible move on to nuclear prototype training units, where they'll operate actual nuclear reactors under conditions that simulate the stress and danger of submarine operations. Success at nuclear power school requires more than intelligence. It demands mental toughness that can withstand months of sleep deprivation, academic pressure, and the psychological weight of knowing that their future responsibilities will involve controlling forces capable of powering entire cities or destroying them through careless operation. The graduates emerge as some of the most highly trained nuclear technicians in the world, prepared for the next phase of training that will push them even further toward their limits. The most terrifying phrase a submarine trainee can hear isn't nuclear meltdown or flooding. It's, "You have 5 minutes." In the advanced training simulators that prepare sailors for life or death missions aboard nuclear submarines, that countdown represents the difference between heroic survival and catastrophic failure that kills everyone aboard a billion-dollar underwater weapon. These aren't Hollywood disaster scenarios. They're realistic recreations of actual emergencies that have occurred aboard submarines operating in hostile waters where rescue is impossible. The simulation begins without warning as trainees operate mock submarine systems in compartments that replicate every detail of actual nuclear submarines, down to the cramped spaces, constant noise, and artificial lighting that defines underwater life. Suddenly, alarms scream throughout the training facility as simulated steam erupts from ruptured pipes, emergency lighting bathes everything in hellish red glare, and instructors assume the roles of panicked crew members reporting casualties from multiple compartments. The trainees have exactly 5 minutes to identify the problem, implement emergency procedures, coordinate damage control teams, and restore critical systems before the simulation declares their submarine lost with all hands. What makes these drills psychologically devastating isn't just the time pressure, it's the realistic chaos that mirrors actual submarine emergencies where multiple systems fail simultaneously while the vessel operates hundreds of feet underwater with no possibility of outside assistance. Trainees must plug simulated leaks that spray scalding water throughout the compartment, extinguish fires using emergency equipment while wearing breathing apparatus that restricts vision and movement, and coordinate repair efforts with crew members they can barely see through smoke and steam that fills the training spaces. The instructors who run these simulations are former submarine veterans who've experienced real emergencies aboard operational submarines, and they're merciless in their pursuit of perfection. They'll throw additional casualties into the scenario just as trainees think they've gained control, simulating the Murphy's Law reality of submarine operations where every emergency spawns additional problems. A simple leak becomes an electrical fire which triggers reactor safety systems, which causes loss of propulsion, which creates life support problems that cascade through every system aboard the submarine. Combat scenarios push trainees beyond emergency procedures into the realm of warfare where split-second decisions determine whether their submarine survives enemy attack or becomes another statistic in the dangerous game of underwater warfare. Trainees must navigate through simulated minefields, evade enemy vessels using only sonar contacts, and execute combat maneuvers that require precise coordination between multiple crew members operating in spaces so cramped that communication becomes physically challenging. The psychological pressure becomes so intense that some trainees suffer panic attacks, freeze under pressure, or make decisions that would result in crew deaths aboard actual submarines. These failures aren't considered weaknesses. They're necessary eliminations of personnel who lack the mental toughness required for submarine service where hesitation kills people. The most psychologically challenging training any submarine sailor faces doesn't involve nuclear reactors or combat scenarios. It's learning how to escape from a submarine that's dying beneath hundreds of feet of crushing water. At the submarine escape training tank, recruits must confront their deepest fears about drowning while preparing for the nightmare scenario that keeps submarine families awake at night. Their sailor trapped aboard a disabled submarine resting on the ocean floor with no hope of rescue. The training facility itself resembles something from a science fiction horror movie. a massive cylindrical tank filled with 34 degrees Celsius water that simulates the temperature conditions sailors might encounter during actual submarine escape operations. The tank extends downward through multiple levels, allowing trainees to practice emergency ascent procedures from increasing depths that replicate the crushing pressure and disorientation of escaping from submarines operating at operational depths where the water pressure alone could kill them instantly. What makes this training particularly terrifying isn't just the physical challenge, it's the psychological reality of preparing for a scenario where everything has gone catastrophically wrong aboard a billion-dollar nuclear submarine. Trainees must master the use of emergency breathing apparatus while ascending through water that crushes their bodies with increasing pressure, learning to control their natural panic response as they rise toward a surface that might be hundreds of feet above their heads. The emergency procedures they learn read like instructions for surviving the apocalypse. How to operate emergency position indicating radio beacons that deploy automatically when submarines reach certain depths, signaling rescue forces that a submarine has been lost with all hands aboard. These EPIRB systems represent the submarine equivalent of a dying scream. Electronic signals that tell the world a crew is trapped beneath waters too deep for rescue, too far from help to matter. Trainees practice operating emergency life support equipment in conditions that simulate the chaos of a flooding submarine where electrical systems have failed. Compartments are filling with freezing seawater, and crew members must make split-second decisions about who lives and who dies based on available escape equipment. The training scenarios force sailors to confront moral dilemmas that would challenge philosophers. Do you save yourself or help an injured shipmate? How do you decide who gets the limited emergency breathing apparatus when there aren't enough units for everyone? Surface survival techniques add another layer of nightmare fuel to escape training, as sailors learn to survive in open ocean conditions while waiting for rescue that might never come. They practice operating survival equipment in waters that would kill them through hypothermia within hours, learning to signal aircraft and surface vessels while fighting exhaustion, dehydration, and the psychological trauma of watching their submarine and possibly their shipmates disappear into the depths below. The graduation requirement for escape training isn't just technical proficiency, it's demonstrating the mental toughness to function rationally while preparing for scenarios that represent every submarine sailor's worst nightmare about their chosen profession. The ultimate test of submarine training occurs when sailors transition from simulators to operating actual nuclear reactors that could power entire cities or obliterate them through catastrophic miscalculation. At nuclear prototype training units across the country, trainees work with live nuclear systems where a single wrong valve operation, miscalculated control rod movement, or ignored safety protocol could trigger radiological incidents that would make Chernobyl look like a chemistry set accident. These prototype reactors aren't training mock-ups. They're fully operational nuclear power plants that generate real steam, real radiation, and real consequences for sailors who make mistakes while learning to harness the most dangerous forces known to humanity. The training environment combines the complexity of operating billion-dollar submarine systems with the constant awareness that nuclear energy doesn't forgive errors, hesitation, or the kind of learning through mistakes approach that works in other military training programs. What makes nuclear reactor training uniquely terrifying is the invisible nature of the dangers involved. Unlike emergency drills where sailors can see smoke, hear alarms, and feel the heat from simulated fires, nuclear radiation kills silently and invisibly, while reactor systems operate at temperatures and pressures that would instantly vaporize human bodies if containment systems fail. Trainees must learn to operate equipment they cannot fully see, controlling forces they cannot directly observe, while maintaining the kind of precision that allows no margin for the trial and error learning that characterizes normal human development. The psychological pressure of nuclear reactor training breaks some of the Navy's most promising candidates, as sailors struggle with the responsibility of controlling systems capable of powering submarines for decades or creating environmental disasters that would contaminate entire regions. Every control rod movement, every valve operation, and every system startup requires verification procedures so detailed that a single missed step could cascade into reactor scrams that shut down billion-dollar submarines during critical missions in hostile waters. Safety protocols governing nuclear reactor training read like instructions for handling weapons of mass destruction, because that's essentially what submarine reactors represent. Controlled atomic weapons that provide propulsion instead of explosive destruction. Trainees must demonstrate mastery of radiation protection procedures, emergency shutdown sequences, and damage control measures that could mean the difference between saving their submarine and creating an underwater nuclear incident that would contaminate ocean areas for generations. The qualification process for nuclear reactor operators involves comprehensive examinations covering thousands of technical specifications, emergency procedures, and safety protocols that trainees must memorize with perfect accuracy. Oral examinations conducted by senior reactor operators can last for hours, as examiners probe every aspect of nuclear plant operation while searching for knowledge gaps that could prove fatal aboard operational submarines where backup expertise might not exist. Graduates of nuclear reactor training represent some of the most highly qualified nuclear technicians in the world, capable of safely operating the most dynamic nuclear power plants ever constructed while maintaining the kind of reliability that has produced over 6,200 reactor years of operation without radiological accidents. A safety record that exists only because of training so intense it rivals astronaut preparation programs. As we surface from this deep dive into the most intense training program in military history, the extraordinary transformation of ordinary civilians into nuclear-qualified submarine operators becomes undeniably clear. These aren't just sailors. They're academic warriors who've survived educational gauntlets that would break graduate students, psychological crucibles that eliminate the mentally weak, and technical training programs that rival NASA astronaut preparation in their demands for perfection under impossible pressure. The statistics tell a story of human selection and development that defies civilian comprehension. 30% washout rates at nuclear power school, despite recruiting from the top 10% of Navy candidates. 5-minute emergency scenarios where hesitation means death for 130 crew members. And escape training that forces sailors to confront their deepest fears about drowning while trapped in billion-dollar submarines resting on ocean floors too deep for rescue. These numbers represent more than training metrics. They embody the ruthless elimination process that ensures only the Navy's best and brightest earn the privilege of operating the most sophisticated underwater weapons platforms ever constructed. The mental and physical demands placed on submarine trainees push human capability beyond reasonable limits, creating warriors capable of controlling nuclear reactors that could power entire cities, managing emergency situations where 5 minutes determines life or death for entire crews, and operating in underwater environments where mistakes don't just end careers. They end lives and potentially trigger international incidents that could reshape global politics. These sailors must master academic subjects that challenge PhD-level scientists, demonstrate psychological resilience that would impress combat veterans, and maintain technical precision that allows zero margin for the kind of learning through error that characterizes normal human development. What makes submarine training uniquely demanding isn't just the technical complexity or psychological pressure. It's the constant awareness that every lesson learned, every procedure mastered, and every emergency drill completed prepares them for scenarios where they'll be humanity's last line of defense against forces that could kill everyone aboard their submarine within minutes. They're training to operate in an environment where rescue is impossible, backup support doesn't exist, and individual competence determines collective survival in ways that civilian occupations never demand. The submarines these warriors will eventually operate represent the pinnacle of human technological achievement. Nuclear-powered vessels worth more than $4 billion each, capable of remaining submerged for months while conducting missions in hostile waters where detection means death or international catastrophe. These platforms require crews whose training matches their sophistication, sailors whose education costs exceed that of medical doctors, whose psychological resilience surpasses that of special operations forces, and whose technical competence rivals that of nuclear engineers working at civilian power plants. Tonight, while most Americans sleep safely in their beds, submarine crews trained through these extreme programs patrol beneath enemy waters, their nuclear reactors humming quietly as they conduct missions that protect national interests around the globe. These underwater guardians represent the ultimate expression of human training and technological capability, proof that ordinary people can be transformed through extraordinary preparation into operators capable of managing the most dangerous and sophisticated weapon systems ever created by human hands.